broadcasting live tonight from our Durban studios, and we are also broadcasting live across several other radio stations. That's Radio Islam International, Channel Islam, IFM, Voice of the Cape, Sirius FM, and Radio 786. So welcome to all our listeners. I'm your host tonight, Dr. Zakaria Ahmed Ismail. I'm a medical officer working in the state sector. And tonight we are diving deep into a topic that affects us all. That's dealing with stress. So whether you're a professional balancing deadlines, whether you're a parent at home juggling home and work, or simply someone trying to hold everything together, let's pause for a moment and think. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed, even when nothing seems wrong? Do you sometimes find yourself exhausted from doing everything right? Or perhaps you've caught yourself snapping at loved ones, not because of anger, but because of stress. Now, in a world that moves faster every day, stress has quietly become one of the biggest health issues of our time. It creeps into our workspaces, our homes, our relationships, and even our spiritual lives. Yet it's something many of us struggle to talk about openly. So tonight we are going to unpack what stress truly is, how it affects our minds and bodies, and most importantly, how we can manage it in a healthy, faith-centered, and compassionate way. And joining us tonight is someone whose work many of you may already know and appreciate. That's Dr. NAZIA Osman, a clinical psychologist who's been working closely with individuals, couples, and families, helping them navigate the challenges of emotional well-being and mental resilience.
Assalamu alaikum, and Jazakallah for having me, and it's so good to be back on Radio Al Ansar.
Pleasure to have you. And as always, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. You can WhatsApp your thoughts on or questions on 060-904-1056. That's 060-904-1056. So by the end of this hour, we're going to understand not just how to survive stress, but how to transform it into growth, gratitude, and calm. But before we begin, I just want to highlight something. Every year, the Islamic Medical Association of South Africa honors our Muslim graduates in all the health science fields, that is, our doctors, pharmacists, physios, dentists, all of them in the health science sector. This year, it will be held in Durban on the 5th of December, in Joburg on the 28th of November, Cape Town on the 9th of December, Tshwane on the 22nd of November, and Bloemfontein on the 21st of November. So graduates in all these fields are encouraged to attend. Contact your local IMA office for more details. So if you or a family member you know has graduated this year, please inform them. It promises to be a wonderful gesture to honor our graduates. And remember, the graduate and one person of their choice qualifies for free entry. So before we unpack this topic of tonight's show, Dr. Osman, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to become a clinical psychologist?
No matter how many times I answer that question, I still have to rack my mind about why do I do what I do. So I'd like to think it was a calling. From a very young age, I've been very curious about what happens in people's minds. In fact, even as a kid, someone asked me, what superpower would I like to have? And I said, I'd like to read minds.
Okay.
But I can't do it, so don't even ask that of me. I remember sitting in the car, being an only child, peering into other cars and thinking, I wonder what's their story? And I'd make up all these things that could be happening. So there was always this curiosity to the working of the minds. It's a privilege to be able to listen to what's going on in other people's lives and to make a difference, to see them empowered or changed or happier is what we live for. My research interest, funny enough, was mindfulness-based stress interventions for stressed out health professionals and how we handle our stresses and what it does to our body and mind.
Okay.
And that interest came from having chronic conditions myself, and usually it would come after a really stressed situation, like whether it's master's or doctorate or some sort of a burnout. And then I started thinking, this burnout is not just psychological, it's physical too. And it's, a whole lot of stress. And what do we do about it? And I stumbled onto mindfulness. And basically, it's a very simple concept, but it works, alhamdulillah. It's worked for me, at least.
Alhamdulillah. And we're hoping to share it with our listeners tonight.
Inshallah.
As well. So let's start from the basics then. The word stress gets used so often. What exactly do we mean when we say stress? How would you define it?
So I think, it's interesting to see where the word originated from, because the root word actually meant to draw tight. So that's one way of thinking about stress, drawing tight. And then physics took over that word and said, no, it's when some weight is impinging on you, when something's imposed on you, when you're taking on something from the external. So we assume that stresses are when external situations draw it tight for us or take out a lot of us. But in the 1930s, a physician took it over and said, it's not about the demands that are imposed on us. It's how do we deal with it? And a whole different idea came out about stress. We look into how the mind deals with stress. And the mind deals with stress in a very specific way. If we think something is too much to handle, we get so-called stressed out. If we think it's one of those things, we let it go. Then we have a secondary thing where we perceive it and we go, can I cope with this? So this is something that could get me upset, but if I can cope with it, funny enough, the body does not instigate the stress response. But if we perceive that we cannot cope with it, this is overwhelming, the body goes into the stress response. So first it's psychological. We're looking at perception and how do we respond, and do we have enough of the coping mechanisms to respond? And then if we think we can't, the body goes into the stress response, and that's what usually people talk about, the physiological symptoms of stress. And I have this way of thinking about it, and I hope our listeners can appreciate. Stress is supposed to be acute. It's supposed to be there to help our body get out of dangerous situations. So the body activates. For example, if an animal is being chased by a carnivore, so a zebra being chased by a lion, what would happen?
It's that fight and flight response.
Response. In fact, a polyvagal theory says there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So fawn is I act nice, I bat my eyelashes, I make friends with you, I give you compliments, which is the newer one. Freeze is when things are overwhelming and an animal will act dead, or we collapse, or we don't know what to do with it. But if a zebra is being chased, usually it will start with becoming hypervigilant. Every noise affects it. It stops listening to whatever other communication. It starts listening to sounds, which is what we humans do when we get stressed out. Human voices irritate us. We start becoming very attuned to noise around us. That's why someone who's stressed, if you drop something next to them, they will get irritated with you.
Become irritable.
The eyes, the pupils dilate. They take in more light because it's all about information. Blood will flow to the limbs. Funny thing, the blood doesn't flow to the prefrontal cortex, which is our reasonable mind. It goes to the limbic brain, the limbic system, which is our reptilian brain, which is very quick to respond, which is all about bodily functions and just being agitated or irritated or emotional, because that doesn't take a lot of work from us. So as you can hear, the bowels of the bowels will empty out because we don't need to carry that kind of weight. But on the top, we will not be digesting because this is not the time to rest and digest. So you can hear physiologically, there's so many things going on. And people who have panic attacks or in chronic stress will say, I have muscle pains. They have migraines. Their eyes are sore. They're irritable. They have tinnitus. They have numbness and tingling in their hands and feet. Doesn't all of this sound like the stress response? Because we built to have this response. It's there to help us survive. But for an acute phase, because what happens when the zebra just say manages to get away from the lion? It calms down, its heart rate will go down, its breathing will go back to normal, it won't be shallow, its pupils will constrict, it will relax all around, and it goes to rest and digest. It'll go back to grazing, it'll go back to being comfortable and at ease because it stops. And that's what the stress response is supposed to be about. In fact, there's a lovely book called Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, because zebras know when they're out of danger. Animals can pick up. But as humans, unfortunately, if we have been through something stressful, for whatever reason, some of our nervous systems don't process or acknowledge that we're done now. You're safe now. It's okay. We keep on activating into the stress response. So anxious people will keep on activating into the stress response. Traumatized people will keep on activating into the stress response, reading everything as stressful.
So it becomes a chronic, unhealthy coping mechanism.
Yeah. So the problem is not stresses or stressful situations, but if it's acute, we can handle it for a period of time. But if it's chronic, the body is not built for chronic stress. And this is when we have physical burnout. This is when we have, our systems going, even our endocrine system. all of these things, I mean, the cortisol levels, adrenaline levels that stress will give you, our bodies are not built to be in these states forever.
No, definitely. Would you say then, is stress-free living realistic, or is it just a myth? Is there a world where we can live stress-free? Let's put it that way.
I think it would be a utopia if we lived in a stress-free world. How lovely if we could have a stress-free world. I often tell my patients, a life of meaning, unfortunately, will be stressful, because if you try to pursue a life without stress, I think you're going to have a life that's very glib. So we can't avoid stresses, unfortunately. In fact, that itself would cause stress for us.
Yes.
It's stressing me out. Stop talking right now, whatever it is, right? Unfortunately, it's not possible. But what we can do, okay, I'm going to use an image. I like images. I hope our listeners can appreciate these. I think about, Zakaria, I'm going to test your cooking skills. Have you seen the old-fashioned pressure cooker?
I have actually.
You have? Oh, well done. Kudos to
Yeah.
you. And the old-fashioned pressure cooker would go on the stove, and the heat would be the stresses. So there's work, there's not enough sleep, there's relationship demands, there's the political climate, whatever these stories are, all of these things is what's happening in Palestine, all of these things that are in our world. It's hot, our temperature, all of that. These are stresses. These are things that make us uncomfortable. And that's the heat that's under the pressure cooker.
All accumulates.
All accumulates. Ideally, we reduce that, but sometimes it's not possible in the short term, maybe possible in the long term. Our body is the pressure cooker. The water inside the pressure cooker are our emotions. They start boiling. Things are happening. The more stresses we have in our life, the more irritable we are, the more quick we are to blow our top. Everything irritates us. We perceive everything as annoying. Now, we can't stop or get out of the heat quick enough. But what happens with the pressure cooker is we have a vent.
Right.
So the vent is what I would call our coping mechanisms in life.
Okay.
Therapy, of course I'm biased. Therapy, good social relationships, prayer, spirituality, sleep, all of these things, people that you can talk to, safe environments,
Good support
structures. If the more we have of these things, the more we're able to handle our stresses. So we don't aim for a stress-free life, unfortunately. You can reduce as much as you can. Like if someone's toxic, don't go spend extra time with them.
Right.
Sure, long-term do that. But aim for having enough of the good things in life, the coping mechanisms in life, so you can handle the stresses if and when they come. And in the long term, okay, if the work is too stressful and you do better in a better space, sure. But in the meantime, while you are there, at some point, you're going to have to cope.
I like that. The focus is then on coping with the stressful situation instead of, stress is going to be inevitable most of the time. So it's about coping, learning how to cope with that.
But I think, Zakaria, also when someone is constantly stressed, unfortunately, they find it very hard to differentiate between, is this me or is this the situation? If someone's chronically stressed all the time, stressed, they don't even know, is it me? Is it the environment? But when we are calmer, when we have our mind together, when we've come, just say after a paddle game, all of a sudden the world looks different, or you've had a cup of coffee with your friend. And then when you're in a calm state, you can come to those decisions. Actually, I don't think I'm happy here. Or, compared to the other job, this is not that bad. So we have to make these decisions in a state where we are not constantly activated.
And the body sometimes doesn't get that off signal of the stress. So how can someone then recognize when their stress is no longer healthy for them?
So I think, stress, as much as we pathologize it, it is a normal response. The problem, as I said, is when it's chronic and when it is, we don't know how to switch off. But if it's causing impairment, where you're unable to concentrate, you're unable to focus, you're getting agitated, you're irritated all the time, people can't talk to you, loved ones are saying, what's going on? You're not looking the same, you're not sounding the same, you're not smiling as much. So if there is impairment and if there is distress and if people around you are getting concerned, usually I'd say those are the markers, those are the indicators that the stress is becoming too much. Normally, or usually too much of stress can lead to anxiety, which is a chronic condition, low mood, or in the workspace, more often than not, increased perceived stress leads to burnout. So that's what we keep an eye out for. And according to the World Health Organization, burnout is increasing at an exponential rate. So people are more stressed out than ever, even though most of us are hybrid or working online. So this is something to keep an eye out for, that if it's creating distress, creating impairment, people are noticing, are you moving towards burnout? Where you're questioning everything, you're cynical, things are not feeling like you don't feel competent anymore. And people are noticing. Start doubting yourself. You don't feel joy in the work. You're like, and then the remarks become pretty snarky. Everything feels duller. You're not as bright anymore. Things like that. Where, and usually, sadly, it can affect competence. It can affect, because you're not finding the joy, because you're not paying that much attention. It can affect competence as well.
And if that motivation is lost, then it makes sense that it can affect competence. That's now in the workspace. How can stress affect communication in families?
So I think unfortunately, when we are stressed out, the part of the brain that's activated sees everything emotionally, and it feels like everybody's coming to attack you. So you in this, your tolerance levels are really low. What you can tolerate in a normal day, like the children are playing, or the wife asks for something, the husband asks for something, usually you'd be able to handle it. But when you are stressed out, everything feels like an attack. Feedback feels like criticism. You get irritated. There are outbursts. It's very hard. Like I said, when you're in the stress response, human voices irritate you because it feels like it's distracting, either from your inner thoughts or from that hypervigilance that you have to noise, because your system, your activating system, is saying we're in danger. It's very hard to communicate when someone's in an irritable mood. Their frustration threshold is low, and they're almost paranoid because they feel like you're out there to get them. Their mind is not, they're not at the space to be empathetic or to listen to your point of view or to go, oh, I have insight. Look at how I'm coming across. They're really in their own space. And that sadly, when they're in their own mind and you're irritated by everything, you're going to tell yourself stories like, no one appreciates me. I do so much. Everybody's silly, whatever. You come up with these stories and you stay in that space.
Can it also lead to anger outbursts?
Absolutely. So, I alluded to the fact that when someone is in the stress response, the limbic system, or specifically the amygdala, that's the part of the brain that's functioning, which is a very reptilian part of the brain. It's not a smart part of the brain, and that part of the brain actually it looks towards former learning. So if anything bad has ever happened, or somebody told you something terrible in the past, it's easier to remember that than to remember, oh man, let me just suppress this, or this is my loved one in front of me. It's very hard to be logical.
You lose
it's very
perception
hard
sometimes.
and you're not thinking beyond yourself. You're just so self-absorbed. It's almost like you become a little bit feral in that state. So emotional regulation when you're in that state is difficult. The only way to, and calming a person down by saying calm down, unfortunately does not work. So, I think what does work is when go into the aircon room, cool off, go for a walk, something physical
Wash
to
your
get
face,
you.
make wudu.
And exactly the hadith of our Prophet ﷺ is scientifically backed, alhamdulillah, where changing posture and dropping temperature is so amazing for calming you down, because the part of the brain that we do have access to are the lower parts of the brain, which is God, my mind at this point, the physical part. So when we do things like calm our breathing, change posture, go for a walk, cool ourselves off, that is closer to the limbic system than our prefrontal cortex, because that's very far. That's across the road there.
Right.
And access to that at this point is not possible. So when we do physical things, it calms us down. But when we say someone's cross and we say, stop overthinking it, get out of your mind, buddy. How do we get out of our mind at that point? The body. The body is how you get out of your mind. Okay. And that's what mindfulness will teach. That was our sunnahs teach, our hadith. Like make wuzu. Right. What are you doing?
You are cooling your body temperature down.
By putting water on it, and you become aware of each movement that you're doing, if we're doing it correctly. If we're reading salah, we're supposed to be reading salah, picturing ourselves in front of the Almighty, going into different postures. And if you go and make wuzu and read your salah, you'll be surprised at how that anger is going to diminish and you'll be less irritable.
Actually dissipates. You feel it
And
dissipating
dissipate.
away.
Even just breathing, even just a pause, a break can make all that world of difference when you are in that irritable state.
What are some of the most common stresses in modern life?
Oh, that's a hard one.
As you mentioned, now it's growing. It's being found out more exponentially.
Oh, ka-ching. It's true. Financial stress is quite huge. Financial stress, before when we'd sit with couples, all of us psychologists, we were trained, communication is the biggest thing. Then we started learning, value systems are the biggest thing. But when I sit with premarital counseling, with marriage problems, finances have become one of the biggest things. Sorry, in-laws, you're not that big a deal anymore. I think most people are living on their own. But finances have become a big deal. I think like almost a role reversal in terms of male and females are working, expectations. So those kind of things have become something. Cost of living. Work is a huge stressor. Relationships, also a big one. So there's quite a few. I think in our modern lifestyle, also because lots of things have become online, people are actually working harder. Though we've taken commuting out of it, we're working harder. We don't know where to switch off, because before you'd go to work, 4 or 5 o'clock, you come home, and then you're in your relaxed space. But what happens if you're working in your lounge or your bedroom? Where is your relaxed space?
That relaxed space becomes your work environment.
And I think people are working longer hours, and the bedroom is supposed to be somewhere where you sleep. And imagine if you're working from your bedroom. How do we train the mind to say you're supposed to relax here? So things are becoming very confusing. But also, we used to be more social before, in person. People are not coming out of their homes as much. We're ordering everything, check is 60, takeouts. Where are you switching your phone off? Getting into spaces, meeting people, forgetting about your problems. Your phone is there demanding your attention all the time. Work emails are, there 24/7. Whoever wants to access you has access to you all the time. When are we switching off?
So we have to try and draw that line ourselves.
We have to. The information overload, Zakaria. Doom scrolling, looking through things. How much of information? What is that doing to the mind? The stimulation.
Constantly process all this.
Yeah, and then we think we're getting smarter, but we're not, because how much of that information are you even processing and storing? Because it's too much. In fact, memory is actually dropping because it's too much of information, and our mind is not storing that information. We're not processing. We're not becoming wiser. We're becoming more forgetful, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was actually a very insightful start. I mean, we've unpacked what stress really means, how it affects every layer of our being. Now let us dig a bit deeper into why we experience stress, the underlying causes, the risk factors, and some common misconceptions that often stop people from seeking help. So the first question I would ask is, how does poor sleep and diet worsen stress? What does lifestyle have to do with it?
So I think lifestyle has everything to do with it. As I said earlier, certain things are going to make us more stress resilient. And lifestyle is that way for us to manage chronic stress, because it keeps us, people look for this magic pill to make it all better. But no pill is magical. Lifestyle is the thing that will help sustain us. There's an acronym, it's a DBT, that's type of therapy, is an acronym in it called HALT, HALT. We use it for anger management. And HALT says, if you are hungry, so the H, anxious, A, so always thinking the worst, lonely, or tired, you are going to be dysregulated. Your nervous system is going to be charged. So you can hear from that if you haven't had a good night's sleep, and there's lots of research to show this, that one will be more irritable, will have a lowered frustration threshold, would be in a grouchier mood if they haven't had a good night's sleep. That person's already on edge. If they don't eat the right kind of foods, if they don't eat, if the tummy is not full, if they are hungry, they're hangry, like they say, a hungry man is an angry man. Of course, that's not just for men, women as well. So these kind of things make a huge difference. If we are, as I said, hungry, anxious, lonely, or tired, we are more prone to feel stress. So eating foods with low GI, having a good breakfast before you leaving the house, have a good night's sleep. It makes all the world of difference to your stress response. There's less chance that you're going to be activated. Otherwise, you're going to be that one hooting on the road and having all that road rage.
Now, you mentioned just now that this constant exposure to social media, this doom scrolling, as you were saying, does constant exposure to that add to your stress level, specifically exposure to bad news? I mean, we know what's happening around the world at the moment, especially in Gaza. Does constant exposure to bad news contribute to these stress levels? What would you comment on that?
A definite yes. So doom scrolling meant, it maintains the body's threat to response. It leads to chronic anxiety. There's a part of the brain, like the reptilian part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain, that does not know the difference between image and reality, and because we have mirror neurons, we do not know the difference between them and us. So what I mean by that, if you're watching someone being stabbed on TV, or you're playing a video game that's violent, or you're seeing bodies being charred, your mind does not go, that's them and this is me. The emotional part of the brain is processing that as this is me.
It actually reaches out.
It actually reaches out. There was an experiment being done, and mirror neurons were found, just by chance, where there was a monkey with electrodes still on, and the scientist was eating a banana, and the part of the brain of the monkey that's there for digestion started lighting up.
Okay,
so obviously, I'm assuming we have better empathy than monkeys. When something happens to someone else, our levels of empathy, the parts of our brain actually do light up. That's why we tell our children not to play those horrid video games. Shooting people and banging cars into places is not good for their levels of empathy. In fact, narcissists, which on the rise, that diagnosis on the rise, is basically someone who does not have empathy for another. Okay. And we don't want to have a whole generation of narcissists. We don't want to have people who have no empathy. So, when we see these things and we are overexposed to the images that we're seeing, especially of Palestine, we have to keep ourselves informed. I'm not saying turn a blind eye, but also be aware of sensitive viewing and what it's doing to your mind. Because emotionally, it's also becoming pretty overwhelming. I have quite a few of my patients who are, and they're humane, they're human, they're depressed by what, and especially at the beginning of the war, they couldn't get themselves out of bed because of the amount of stuff they were seeing, and it was too overwhelming for them. And they had survivor's guilt. Do I have a right to be happy? Do I have a right to eat? Do I have a right to do this? And, so we have to watch now that we want to be informed. We want to have empathy, but we also can't be looking at this all the time, especially sensitive images. Yeah.
Well, coming back now to work-related pressures, how would you say does time management rather help to reduce these work-related pressures?
Yeah. So I think time management, a routine is really important, because routine gives us a sense of agency. It gives us a sense of predictability. I think, how children, when they have a routine, they have a bedtime routine, they know where they eat at 6, whatever they, you start reading a bedtime story at 7 and they're sleeping by 8. There's such safety in routine. And even as adults, when we have some predictability to our day, we feel a sense of agency. So time management, having some idea of how your day is going to look, leaving certain time out for tasks. Time management is not your to-do list, because sometimes that to-do list can create more anxiety for you. I think, to me, time management is, if you have a to-do list, make sure you have enough time for that to-do list.
Right.
So it guides you and you're not ending up more pressured, and it's realistic, like not more than 3 things on your to-do list.
Something
Right?
that you can
I
achieve,
think
something achievable.
something that you can achieve. So I think time management is important. It gives you a sense of agency. Break the tasks down into manageable steps. Like, just say if you're saying, I'm giving you an silly example, cook a curry. Okay, but if you don't have the groceries, then that cooking the curry is not 10 minutes. It's about going, buying what you need to buy. So how much time do you leave after that? Maybe an hour and a half or 2. Then it doesn't become stressful for you. So make sure that you break down it into manageable steps and you have ample time to allow yourself to go through this. Also, overwhelm is when there's too much on your plate and you're prioritizing everything the same. Not everything is of the same importance.
Of the same priority.
The same
That's right.
priority. You have to prioritize what's important and do that first and see if it's manageable, or do we let something slip? Perfectionism also comes in the way of time management, because we want to do everything and we want to do everything perfectly. Then we knot ourselves like pretzels. We can't do everything, and then it becomes stress and overwhelm, and then you either get a migraine, or your body goes into some sort of spasm, and then you come into burnout and you can't do anything at all. So yeah.
Well, if you've just joined us, this is Medical Files. We are speaking with psychologist Dr. NAZIA Osman about stress management, stress at home, stress at work, and stress in our relationships. So, Dr. NAZIA, can regular prayer or meditation lower these chronic stress levels?
So, alhamdulillah, there are quite a few studies to show that having faith gives meaning to our suffering. Having faith that we have a merciful God and that whatever we go through is for a reason helps us to make peace with very difficult situations. And knowing that our business is in a very competent God's hands takes a lot off our plate.
Right.
So there are many studies to show that having faith is so good. For stress, it's so good. For grief, it's so good. For any sort of suffering. And prayer activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It reduces the heart rate, it reduces cortisol, and we find meaning. It's a beautiful buffer for chronic stress.
A natural remedy.
A natural remedy. In fact, I was telling you about my research. We had done mindfulness-based stress reduction programs with health professionals working during COVID. And it was a photo voice study, so I asked for pictures of what was helping them. And when we first got them to slow down in terms of breathing and doing body scan meditations, funny thing is they realized that they were on autopilot. They were just doing what they needed to do. Second step, they became even more stressed because they realized what was on their plate and how are we dealing, because they felt like machines before that. And we actually had pictures of machines and robots and things like that, because they felt like, we're just functioning. And when they got into their body, they were like, oh my God, what's happening here? And the next one was about how do we take care of ourselves? And in the picture of how do we take care of ourselves, I remember a beautiful picture of a musalla and a tasbih on it. And there were Buddhists and Hindus and Christians and all of their, whatever they used to pray, but prayer mats, prayer beads, whatever their religion was.
Pictures
associated came with that. And it just showed how whichever faith we're in, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turning to God at that point was so important. And it helped them make peace and feel somehow more in control of a very scary situation that we didn't even know what was happening, that was out of control. It was a very weird normal. And then, alhamdulillah, we started getting more peace.
And Dr. NAZIA, then when should, in your opinion, someone seek professional help for stress?
So I think if you are noticing that stress is taking over your life and you ending up distressed, because there is such a thing as eustress, which is good stress, EUSTRESS, eustress, which means a certain amount of stress is not bad. Like children before the exams, if they get stressed out enough to study, not bad. It means that they're motivated. So there is such a thing as eustress. But if you are distressed, if you're unable to manage, you're not sleeping well, you're not focused at work, you feel like life doesn't have much of meaning, you are getting irritable, you're fighting with your loved ones, your relationships are taking a toll, your coping mechanisms may be negative, you may be avoiding the things, like you're avoiding work, you're looking for excuses not to go, and maybe you're using unhealthy coping mechanisms like doom scrolling, substances, and it's reaching a crisis point where it's impairing your functioning and you can't manage anymore, your mood is low. Please don't even let it come to that point. Come before that.
Those things become the unhealthy coping mechanisms, the dependency,
and all that. And, but it's not that you wake up one day and you're at that point. I'm sure there are lots of warning signs. I mean, I'm sure your loved one would say, "Why are you so irritated?" Or "You're not smiling anymore." Or your peers would go, "What happened? You're making more mistakes." I mean, there'd be a build-up.
Something shows.
Something gives. Or you start, you don't sleep enough. You're having caffeine to pull you through the day. You're not sleeping. And, people think, and I'm not just advocating for therapy. Sports can also be, something that is therapeutic. But if you are not feeling yourself, Go speak to a loved one or come to a therapist. It doesn't have to be that when you are in dire straits, then you're running off to the psychiatrist or your GP to say, give me something to calm me down.
And then that's when you're looking for that quick fix.
Then you're looking for that quick fix, which unfortunately you didn't have to be that way.
Now you've got to now undo all these years and years of this chronic stress, try to get to the bottom of it.
And it almost becomes this habit to be stressed out. It becomes a habit now to have those, unhealthy substances. It becomes a habit to pop the still pains or have that alcoholics to sleep or allergics or whatever it is. Then you have to not only, because now you're breaking those bad habits, and then we have to figure out, oh, you were stressed and burnt out. That was the source of it. So now you're sitting with two problems.
Yeah. Oh, what would you say then? What types of therapy are most effective for stress?
So when I think about for stress, again, I'm calling a disclaimer, I'm biased. I go all for these mindfulness-based therapies. It's a very simple concept. Basically, it's, and I can't even believe we're promoting this, but it's basically getting into your body, befriending your body, getting into the moment, not focusing too much on the past because that brings your mood down, not being worried about the future and what if this and what if that, because that creates anxiety. It's being in the present moment, being aware of your body moment to moment, not judging, not analyzing, simply feeling present. And there are lots of ways of getting into the state of mind. And that is usually how we can manage stress beautifully, because whatever your stressor is, it can only be dealt with in the present moment. Thinking about it and catastrophizing just makes it bigger, and you can't actually deal with it in the future. You can only deal with it present moment. There are other therapies like cognitive behavior therapy, which helps with reframing, reperceiving. That also helps. But I think I like mindfulness because it's psychosomatic. It works with the mind and the body and helps you calm down. I mean, simple exercises like 3-minute breathing space, which is you're just sitting in a spot.
Right.
It doesn't have to be focusing on a candle or anything of the sort. You're focusing on your breath. And for 3 minutes, all you do, focus on the in-breath, longer out-breath. And for 3 minutes, that's all you're doing, focusing on your breathing. By the end of that, the body has calmed down. Or another one, the body scan meditation, where you bring awareness to each part of your body and check in with it. How are my shoulders feeling? Oh, it's uncomfortable. Let me straighten myself. How's my neck feeling? How's my head feeling? How's my eyes feeling? So you're going through each part of the body, just scanning it and noticing how is it in the present moment. Can you hear? Very simple stuff, Zakaria. Nothing that's...
You don't even realize that the body has tensed up so much until you focus on each area and physically detense it.
That's it. And what a simple concept. I mean, with COVID, with the doctors, they didn't have time to even do that. We were doing walking meditations, which is basically when you are walking, bring to your awareness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a gift of walking, and each step is a blessing and an act of gratitude. Notice your mind sends a message to which part of your body, and then your leg moves from where and which part of your foot is reaching the ground. That's mindful walking. How simple.
And
a minute, 2 minutes. That's it. And by the time you reach the next space, alhamdulillah, you are calmer and able to deal with what this situation now demands of you. So you're not bringing in the past and what has happened, or like as a doctor, you're not bringing your last patient to this patient.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're leaving it behind, and you are being so present moment focused that whoever's in front of you, you are now attuned to them. If you're a working mom, your drive home, just say you're doing another one, which is your 5 senses grounding. You're looking at what's around you, you're using your senses, you're listening to the sounds, you're taking in the smells. By the time you reach home, you are now in your body, fresh in your mind, ready to be in the role of the mother, not bringing work stress, oozing it, and all of that into yours. So very simple, basically transitioning you by using the body.
Okay. That's very interesting. And in severe cases, then, when would you say medications are necessary?
So, look, if severe cases would mean, in my opinion, I could be wrong here, but even in burnout, which has emotional exhaustion, cynicism, lack of competence, we might not choose to, send for medication. We might choose them to do self-care. We might choose them to, talk about their sleep, get some coping mechanisms in place. But let's just say it's now got into depression.
Right.
And if it has stepped into depression, then there's this chronic low mood, there's loss of joy or interest in what used to give before, change in sleep, change in appetite, change in energy, low self-esteem, thoughts of suicide, feelings of worthlessness. It's very comprehensive and longer than a 2-week period. And if it's mild to moderate, therapy can still work. We still try to do behavioral activation, which is getting them back into the routines of life. But if it's more than moderate depression and behavioral activation is not working, then or if the person is suicidal, or this person is really distressed and this mood is very low, we take them, we send them over to psychiatry who will help with medication.
Onto that next step.
Yeah. Or even if it's become acute anxiety or panic attacks, where, a panic attack is different from anxiety. Anxiety to me, cognitively, negative thoughts about the future and assuming catastrophizing, assuming the worst is going to happen and thinking like that all the time. And physiologically, you're having the stress response. But a panic attack is more acute. It's a short period, very distressing, where the person starts, maybe having cold sweats or feeling hot, tingling and numbness, feeling that their heart's palpitating, thinking they can't breathe. They often come to OPD, to outpatients department, either thinking they're having a heart attack or
they get the sense of impending doom.
Something bad's going to happen. If this is happening often, then of course medication can help. So, but medication, that's psychiatry, but therapy does help, because that lifestyle change that we were talking about, get the meds to calm your nervous system down, but then come for therapy so you don't have to live on meds forever.
Right. Yeah, you cannot be dependent on the medication. You've got to come back to therapy and
get those coping mechanisms.
All of those issues.
Yeah. And look, and some people, for whatever reason, don't like talk therapy. Well, then look at those lifestyle changes. I'm not saying it's perfect. Talk therapy has, it's amazing. It's really good to get those things off your chest. But if that's not you as a person, find something that works for you. Once a week, go for some sort of sports. Every day, go to the gym, walking, running. These things can be therapeutic too. Just do something that's healthy for you, that can help you. I mean, boxing I've noticed a lot of our Muslim women, alhamdulillah, doing boxing. It's amazing for anxiety. Running is amazing for depression. Swimming is amazing to calm the mind. Choose something like that then, but do something to help yourself.
To help your body ground itself.
To help your body, yes, exactly.
Coming back to the workplace again, I keep bringing us back to the workplace. Just one thing I wanted to ask you is, how can workplaces support staff mental well-being?
This is a little bit of a battleground, I think, because mindfulness has been critiqued, and I think rightfully so, because it says we can have all the mindfulness in the world and we can do all the meditations and we can teach people how to do, handle their stress. But what if we're just getting them to make peace in toxic environments, which is a valid point. Yeah. We need organizations
as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, we do need organizations. We need these kind of places to come in and say, I just don't want you to be able to, equip people with coping mechanisms to cope with terrible situations. We should not be sitting in terrible situations. It would be really great if, people were aware of working hours, boundaries. I mean, should work emails be sent out after hours? Because sleep is so important. Lunch breaks should be granted. I mean, we say after a certain amount of hours, every company should give a lunch break. But is that really happening? According to the World Health Organization, burnout costs, I think it goes into the trillions, how much it costs across the world, because workplace absenteeism is so high because of people so stressed and burnt out. So it is costing them. It would be cheaper, I think, if organizations had that culture where they weren't worried so much about the bottom line and actually treated their workforce as, that's what matters. Then you're going to reach your bottom line, but you'll have a healthy workforce as well. So I think, I don't think anybody's going to listen to me to say, stop focusing on the bottom line, value human life. I'm hoping, though, that the message goes across to someone. I think this is an age-old battle, but if, even in one of my recommendations of my research was that if we can introduce these kind of things like mindfulness, group therapy, debriefing sessions for certain places at work. So it's not one more thing that staff have to now go home and do, or sports, or whatever it is. What happens if workplaces encourage this? Or even like being health professionals, how much of trauma do we see? How much of death do we see? Where's debriefing?
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, but it should happen, right? I mean, it should be in the workplace, not doctors going and finding their own therapist. I mean, they can, but workplace should cover that. So unfortunately, it's not helping.
That's very
Not
true.
happening. Yeah.
And I think before we wrap up, I just want to touch a little bit on relationships. How can couples communicate better under stress?
Okay, so I think this is a good one. When, as we said, when two people are stressed out and both want to scream and shout, no one's actually listening.
Right. You can't fight fire with fire.
You can't fight fire with fire. Let's just say you notice that your partner is stressed out. Instead of joining him in his dysregulated nervous system or joining her, maybe bring attention to, you know what, love, you sound stressed out. I feel like I can't talk to you right now. Can we have a cup of tea and calm down, and then we'll talk about it? And I notice when is the opportunity to talk, because when someone's dysregulated, the messages are not going through. Then when you feel like this is a calmer point, using you statements like, you did this to me, you said this to me, it's just going to pick up the defenses even more. I statements. I feel upset, or I notice that you use that tone, or I don't like this when you do that. Or I feel upset, I feel hurt, I feel vulnerable, I feel humiliated when you don't smile when you come from work. Whatever. Bring attention to your feelings and the action that upset you. Don't interpret it. Don't just say, you were being moody. No, what did you see that made you think that? Right. I felt sad when you didn't smile at me at the door. You can interpret it as moody. That person is just tired. And then the person might say, I was tired. Okay, what can I do to help that? I just want us to be loving again. Right. Ask for what you want. Feelings, I statements, go to the behavior, don't interpret it, the actual action that you saw. Right. And then what do you want?
And communicate about it.
Communicate about it. I want us to have more time. I want us to sit together. I would have liked if you smiled and greeted me. I don't like when you come tense from work. I would like a hug. I mean, I think humans have very basic, simple needs, but when we start fighting, it becomes historical. Also, couples, especially when they're stressed out, let the past be in the past. Right. Present moment, what's the problem? What happened right here? What is it? And what do I want? So it's nice to bring that kind of, communication in. Also, tone of voice. Right. If you say...
It's very difficult to be mindful of these things.
Exactly. So I think mindfulness comes in because we need to talk. And can we talk?
Right.
Two different
statements.
Yeah. So watch the tone, because funny, I feel like most males will come and say, did you hear that tone of hers? Like they complain about the tone. Right. and the females would go, he's not showing me any emotion. So very common complaints that we hear. So we have to watch our tone. It can change the meaning.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Look, that was truly enlightening. A reminder that managing stress isn't about escaping life's challenges, but learning how to move through them with balance, with faith and self-compassion. I think we've explored the physical, the emotional, and even the spiritual sides of stress, from how it builds up to how we can gently release it. And as Dr. NAZIA beautifully reminded us, healing often begins in stillness, in slowing down, breathing, reflecting, and reconnecting with our purpose. If you've been listening tonight and something resonated with you, perhaps a moment of honesty, a sense of recognition, or even a sigh of relief, then know that you are not alone. Stress touches us all, but support and peace are always within reach. In our final few minutes, we'll bring tonight's discussion to a close with some key takeaways and a heartfelt word of thanks from our guest who shared such wisdom and warmth with us this evening. Dr. NAZIA, it's been such a meaningful hour together. You've given us not only knowledge, but also perspective. A reminder that stress management isn't just about control, it's about connection to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to our Creator. Do you have any key takeaway points from tonight's show for our audience?
So Jazakallah for having me on. I'd like to close up with, unfortunately, a stress-free life is not something that we can have. But if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this can have a huge impact on the way you manage stress. So, focus on that instead of trying to remove the stressor.
Right. Your coping mechanisms. Controlling the situation.
Yeah. And your lifestyle changes.
Yeah. Well, Jazakallah khair. Your insights have truly touched hearts tonight, and I'm sure many of our listeners will carry your words into their daily lives. To everyone tuned in, whether you're listening from home, your car, or work, take a moment tonight to breathe deeply, to reflect, and find something to be grateful for. Life's pressures may never disappear, but with faith, patience, and good company, we can handle them with grace. A sincere thank you to our listeners for being part of this shared journey of learning and growth. If you've missed any part of tonight's discussion, remember the full episode will be available on YouTube, the Radio Al Ansar channel. And remember, if you are struggling, reach out. There's no shame in seeking help. In fact, it's one of the most courageous things that you can do for yourself. And catch us again next week for another edition of the IMA Medical Files, where we tackle real stories, real issues, and real healing. I'm Dr. Zakaria Ahmed Ismail. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and may Allah grant us all calm hearts and peaceful minds. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Doctors and guests on a Medical Files program will help you with any medical problems you have by giving you advice on air. However, they do not have your full medical history and they have not seen you. Please verify the advice given to you on air with your doctor who knows you better. Neither do